Happy New Year. We're in January of 2026. Towards the end of 2025, I shared a video of how I would like to reflect on 2025. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll put a link in the video description for you. So what I did in that exercise is I look at 3 aspects of my life and I look at it through the lens of what are the things that I want to get rid of or toss, what are the things I want to keep, and what are the things that I want to add. So over the winter break, I went on a little bit of a journey, if you will, in my days off. So when I reflect on my hobbies, one of the things that really stood out for me was how much stuff I have accumulated for the different hobbies that I have. So for example, I play the harp and I have a lot of sheet music. I draw occasionally, and I actually have quite a lot of drawing supplies like pencil crayons, brush plans, papers, and whatnot. And then of course, I'm a knitter. And if you are a knitter or crocheter, or you might have even been involved in other hobbies that would use this phrase, we have this situation called SABLE, Stash, Acquisition Beyond Life Expectancy. And I think that is particularly true when it comes to my yarn stash. It's so easy to buy supplies, but it's actually quite hard to find the time and the effort to sit down and do your hobbies. So as part of my reflection, I wanted to look at all these things that I have and do a little bit of almost like a KonMari style cleaning and ask myself, which ones I want to get rid of and which ones I want to keep. And there's a little story I want to share about my yarn diet situation. And I want to talk about this story because it's going to tie into what I end up doing for my winter break. So during pandemic, a lot of stores have to close their door. And when we finally open up, while a lot of stores did open back up, we also noticed some stores in my neighborhood closing down. And one of them is my local yarn store. And when they closed down, they had a close down sale. And I was able to purchase quite a lot of yarn at a pretty decent price. And I was very happy about it. But afterwards, I almost feel bad when I stare at how much yarn I have. Because it wasn't like I didn't have a big stash to start off with, and I just add more to it. So at that point, I told myself that unless I need to get some yarn for whatever reason, and I'll share those with you in a little bit, I'm gonna commit to using what I have in my stash as much as possible. And as a result of that, I actually stopped going to yarn conventions, and I'm also limiting myself to buy yarn under some very limited circumstances. One of them is when I travel. And I don't travel a lot, but when I do, I love visiting the yarn store there. So I'm allowing myself to bring 2 skeins of yarn, local yarn, back home with me. So I did that when I went to Scotland. I did that when I went to Sweden. And then I'm also allowing myself to buy some yarn if I'm knitting something very specific for someone, but then I don't have it in my stash and I need it in that material for a very specific reason, I will make myself the allowance to go and get that yarn. And because of that commitment, I really just have to look at my stash and ask myself what I can make or what I already own. And fortunately, some of the things that are in my stash I brought because there's already a project in mind. But sometimes those projects never get materialized, or I don't like that project anymore. So they're still sitting in my yarn stash anyway. So I made that a challenge to ask myself how I can use what I have and not bring more. So over the winter break, I bring out my stash of yarn and I look at every skein and kind of figure out what I can combine, what quantity I have, and what I can make. And one of the things that I was able to put together as a kit for myself is these Malabrigo worsted weight yarns. These are the reels. I actually have quite a lot of them in different colors. and I was able to make a kit for the Caitlin Hunter Feel the Burn sweater. So I'll be able to finish this sweater entirely with yarn from my stash, which is great because this will help me reduce the yarn count by quite a bit. So that's wonderful. I'm also looking at my work in progress. And if you are a knitter or crocheter, this might sound familiar to you. You might have little project bags hidden here and there. They're half-finished projects and you just don't quite know what to do with it. And I think for the longest time, I avoid those bags like a plague. You know, you started this project, you probably should finish it. But then I got real and I asked myself, if you're not doing it, there has to be a reason. Can we just have an honest conversation about that? So I took out my work in progress bags, and there were at least 4 sweaters in there where they have no sleeves. And I chuckled because I know my aversion towards needing sleeves. But I also didn't want to just let them continue to sit under my chair. So I pulled them out and I have to ask myself what I'm going to do about them. Now this sweater I cast on when my kit was smaller. No one actually can fit into this sweater anymore. And this is kind of like a worst case scenario almost, because not only am I knitting sleeve, but I'm knitting with really fine gauge yarn as well. So this is quite painful to make in that sense. But because no one in my family can really use it, I'm not quite ready to invest the time into finishing the sleeve. However, there are other people who might be able to take advantage of the sweater, and I think it's not a complete loss. So I decided that I would make a cap sleeve on them, and then hopefully I'll be able to give this away because it's actually a really lovely sweater. It's really soft. And then there are sweaters like this one that I'm actually like already most of the way done, and I even have a needle on my sleeve. I just need to sit down and commit the time to finish it. So I finish it, and now I have a sweater that I can wear, which is wonderful. So I get to keep this. Now there were also some stuff that I really didn't want to continue, so I started this project with a cotton yarn to make a dishcloth, but I just didn't like this color. This doesn't really work for me, and it has sit in a bag for a long time. And when I pull it out and I ask myself why I didn't want to finish it, I know why it is. So I round it up, and I also have this needle from a long time ago. I no longer use it, so I put together a little baggie like this, and I'm gonna drop this off in one of the local yarn libraries that I've come across, and hopefully someone else will be able to enjoy that. And then in my add more column, I told myself that I need to find these work in progress, and thankfully I'm almost through all of them. I'm gonna finish them, and I'm also gonna do more of knitting from my stash. So what I did is I went into Ravelry and I cleaned up my queue, because my queue kind of become this black hole of things that I want to knit, but I really never truly commit to it. So it's no longer a true queue anymore. I pair up some yarn with a handful of project with the hope that in 2026, I will actually make them. And then when it comes to my harping, I do keep a list of music that I'm working on and where they're at. And when I look at my list, there are quite a lot of pieces that hasn't really made it to the finish line. So over the holiday, I decide to continue to work on 2 of the pieces because they're so close to finishing. And I would record them because that's my way to mark my completion to that piece. There's always room to improve on a piece of music, but I do want to have a little bit of a snapshot in time and say this is the best I could do at this moment. And my way of marking that completion is to record a video of myself playing the piece, and then I would keep that as a little memento with a timestamp. So I actually finished Sedona Sunrise over the holidays, which I put into my YouTube channel. And then earlier this year, I finished Carol of the Bells, which is an arrangement by Janet Whitman. Believe it or not, I actually started that piece last year with the hope that I would play it in Christmas 2024. I did not finish it, and I was afraid that if I put it down, I would never be able to play it in December 2025 because it takes a while for you to get back into a piece of music. So I actually kept playing that piece of music all throughout 2025. Not every day. The intensity and the frequency get ramped up as it get a little bit closer to the holiday season. But I continue to work on it nonetheless. And I actually finished it a little bit ahead of schedule. I think I was able to play it quite fluently in October. But nonetheless, I was able to play it in 2025 holidays, which makes me quite happy because now I can say that I've finished learning a piece. So through that winter break journey, what I realized is that a new year doesn't always have to mean a new me. Sometimes I need to stop starting new things and start finishing what I started, which is my mantra at the beginning of my journal. It was on the one from my previous year and is also in the one for my current year. So I think for 2026, maybe I'm not so much adding a lot of new things into the mix, but I might want to focus on doing some of the things I've already committed in and bringing it to the finishing line. And maybe I'll learn to do better at bringing things to the finish line. So that was my takeaway for how I want to approach hobbies and maybe some other areas in my life as well when it comes to this new year. What are your hopes for 2026? Leave me a comment and let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.